Welcome to the Beef. The Beef.
Oh yeah, welcome back everybody to the Beef Podcast. Another episode, another Thursday. Thank you for joining us. Today in the studio, we have another very special show for you. So we just had the Tomball Economic Development Corporation on, and that may have thrown a loop for some people because normally we have businesses on here, but government agencies are kind of run like a business. So honestly, it's not far-fetched to have government agencies on here. And there is such a strong benefit for government agencies, especially in the city of Tomball, for businesses within the city. And I know this personally from being an employee of Tomball Fire Department, that there is so much that we do for our business partners within the city. You know, we're not just here to show up and write tickets and get people in trouble and that kind of thing. We're here to truly be a partner for them. So I am excited to introduce Chief Cook and Chief Sykora, Fire Chief and Assistant Fire Chief for Tomball Fire Department. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks man. For having us. Every single episode, like a broken record, if you've ever listened, you've heard me say, I always say I'm excited for this episode, but what cooler and more nerve-wracking than having your bosses on your podcast, you know? So this is really cool. I get to suck up to you and, you know, make y'all look good and just give me brownie points at work, right?
To an extent, maybe not really. Yeah. Evaluation time's coming up in July.
I know. So I mean, welcome to the Beef Podcast. Here we always start out with an icebreaker question. So our icebreaker question today, it is actually one I just kind of thought of on my own because I just finished a big TV show I've been into. So what is your favorite television show? One that you have maybe watched all the way to the end, one that you really enjoy?
Jeff, you want to take that one first?
I don't have one off the top of my head. Gosh, I guess growing up, I mean, you know, I was an emergency kind of guy back in the day.
That's classic.
Kind of fitting.
Yep.
But I would say Schitt's Creek was probably one that I enjoyed here lately. Probably the only one I've gone through and actually watched all of them.
Oh, heck yeah. No, that was a really good show. It was one my wife got me into. I didn't want to watch it. I was like, I saw it on Netflix and I was like, it looks okay, but whatever. She was like, no. Watch it. And I watched it and I was hooked. So same like you from beginning to end. And I kind of wish it was still on.
Yeah, my wife does too.
So mine would be really going back. So I'm going to date myself, not necessarily as far back as Emergency, but my favorite one, 100% hands down, was the Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah. Okay.
But then coming in after that was In the Heat of the Night. I've seen both of those all the way through. And the odd thing, the first season of the Dukes of Hazzard was filmed in the same town that all of the In the Heat of the Night episodes were after season 2.
Wow.
So it was Covington, Georgia, which isn't far from my mom and dad's house. And I was able to go through and see a bunch of the old stuff, the Boar's Nest, all that kind of stuff, and kind of geek out on Dukes of Hazzard a little bit.
I wasn't aware until The Walking Dead how many TV shows are filmed in Georgia.
Yep.
Like Georgia is a huge mecca for shows. Yep. and I guess movies too, but for film in general. Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, Covington, Georgia. They call it the Hollywood of the South.
Yeah, that's fitting. Mine is, we just finished Ozark. And Ozark was such a great show. Another Netflix show. I think they've done really well with some of the content they've been putting out. Of course, some of it's hit or miss, but Ozark was it was such a good show. And it was one that, unlike The Walking Dead, where I've kind of felt recently over their past couple of seasons, I'm like, this should be dead. Like, I'm not watching it anymore. I've not watched it in years. And I'm like, this show should be off the air. It just got stale, repetitive. Ozark seems like it's had really good storylines. And then after the season finale, I don't know if y'all watched any of it at all. And I don't want to spoil it for any of our listeners, but after that season finale, I was like, there's so much storyline left. I need them to finish this. And we were actually, when we got to work, when C Shift came on, Justin Frank came on, and I was driving on overtime for him. And he was like, yeah, man, I just finished Ozark last night. And I was like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it because I still have 2 episodes left. Leave me alone. Like, no. I caught up on a lot of it on our Sunday, B Shift second day, Sunday. I watched a lot of that in between calls. And then when that Monday hit that night, I went into my room before dinner and I was like, I got to finish this show. I only have 1 episode left now. And I finished it and I went out and I was like, bro. He said, yeah, disappointing, right? I was like, only in the fact that it's over. Like, I want more episodes. So Yeah, Netflix does pretty good, but that was cool, man. I didn't realize how much they film in Georgia. So
They film a ton.
awesome. Well, the reason we're here to talk about Tomball Fire Department, who Tomball Fire Department is, who it's made up of, why we do what we do there, all that kind of stuff. But I always like to start with the personal stories of the people who are leading a business or an agency. So if y'all don't mind just kind of sharing where y'all came from, y'all got some rich history in the fire service. Both of you do. So just tell us all about you, where you came from, how you got into the fire service, and how you kind of came into this position here at Tomball.
I'll let you start.
All right. I'll roll with this one first. So I started out as a junior at 16, well, really 14 years old with Katy Fire Department. And then I moved, when I found out Sykora actually let you go on calls, I went over to Sykora. I was there for 18 years total, but at the same time, around 2001, right after I graduated high school, went straight in EMT school and put myself through fire school working as an EMT on the ambulance. Right after I got off the tower is what we call it in Houston. When I finished with the academy, I went into Houston and started with Houston Fire Department in 2002, and then left there in 2012. I was one of the first. There's many out there, I'm sure, but I was one of the first to say, "Hey, I'm going to a smaller agency for a little more growth, a little more potential, a little more not being a number."
Right.
And that was one of the reasons I came to Tomball. I'd been working here part-time for right at 4 years at that point, and came in here as a lieutenant and worked my way up from lieutenant to being one of the first captains, and then the fire marshal for 6 years, and then took over as fire chief in September last year.
Yeah.
I have kind of a similar story. I started as a junior volunteer with Ponderosa Fire Department. At the age of 12, my whole family was kind of involved. My mom drove trucks. My sister, brother, and I were all, rode on the back and progressed on up. I was the only one that stuck with it. Got in the Houston Fire Department in 1989. Just recently retired there after 32 years, working my way up through the system down there. Worked here part-time in Tomball and loved it. Had the opportunity to move over here as an assistant fire chief here, and I jumped on it. The small town life, the things, the benefits, kind of like what Chief was saying, it's just so different than being a number in a huge city like Houston. So it's just really a cool, down-to-earth kind of thing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. And I think, honestly, it depends on what you're looking for, because I think a lot of these guys and girls, especially the young ones, sometimes they don't mind being just a number, because it's like, I can show up to work, catch my paycheck, burn a lot, enjoy doing what I'm doing, and then be tired, but go home, sleep, and then wake up and do it all over again next shift. And that works out great for them. But for me, someone who's more entrepreneur minded, I like the fact that my chief and assistant chief know who I am. Versus, oh, that's employee 668. It's like, oh, no, that's John Kelly. Yeah, I know everything about how he started here and where he's at now and why he's there. And I know all of his faults and I know all of his good things. And I enjoy that because it's like you can kind of give more of that feel like, okay, you messed up, but we know who you are and we know why you messed up, and here's how you can correct it. Versus, oh, well, policy 1358.2-1 was broken, and here's your write-up for that, and it's done and over. Thanks, employee 668. Have a good day. It's like, no, we know you, and we know where you come from and why you do what you do, and we know if you're truly on that path of, oh, you're messing up now and not being good, and we can correct that, or we know that you're normally a good employee and you had a small slip up, and it's just a verbal counseling because we're not going to waste time with this, or like so many things can change when you're in that small town feel. And that's one thing that's great about being an entrepreneur in Tomball, is that everybody here knows each other. But if you don't like that, then, a big city is the way to go. Go to Atlanta, go to Houston, go to Dallas, go to any of those places. But Tomball and many of the other great organizations in this area, they kind of give you that, like, what we do is a big time, but we have that small town feel. And I like that too. So, similar to y'all, man, I don't want to hurt your feelings, Chief Cook, and say that in 1989 I was a year old. That would be rude, so I won't mention that. But same way in the 90s. In the 90s, my dad was a volunteer firefighter, and he was with Tri-County Fire Department. And I remember, being in the truck with him, and he slaps that red little, Be-Doo light on top, just swinging around like a bubble gum. And we'd go to calls, and I would just be riding with him. He's like, all right, boys, stay in the truck. And then he gets out and hops on the booster, and they're fighting grass fires and whatnot. I remember being 5 or 6 years old and getting a red fire helmet from the chief of Tri-County at the time that I still have in my office today. And all of those great things. And then I went with Waller Volunteer Fire Department and eventually Tri-County Fire Department to start my career as a volunteer as well. Same thing, junior fireman, 17 years old when I got in. Only able to go to grass fires and do anything except hand out waters on structure fires until I was 18. Quickly, figured out I loved that. But in Waller County, all you could do to get paid was EMS. So became an EMT, started working full time as an EMT, promoted to paramedic, got that education and that work experience. And then Pearland Fire Department was like, well, we're going to merge fire and EMS together. Do you want to be a firefighter? And I was like, hell yeah, I want to be a firefighter. And so I did that route. And then after that, it was just, things led me different places. I believe that there's always a path for everything and there's a reason for everything. And luckily, I hung around here part-time long enough and figured out I loved it and came on full-time. And now I work for you two gentlemen. So Tomball Fire Department, I know exactly what we do for businesses and citizens and all that stuff and why we're so important. But just tell us about Tomball Fire Department from the beginning, where it started, how maybe the fire service in general has evolved, and then why it's so important to our citizens and our businesses here in town and what we do for them.
Well, the fire department started in 1934, and all volunteer agency. It went through changes here and there. A professional welding supply on the east side of town, that was Station 2. The Harris County Tax Office right there by the depot, that was Station 1. And then in 1995, they built Station 1 as you know it today, with the angled bays and the full metal deal right here across the street. I literally walked out and was here. But we, from there in 2002 is when they started the part-time program. So part-time programs are generally brought into volunteer fire departments during the day whenever volunteers are unable to respond. And over the years, it has evolved into what we have now, which is a full career agency. We still have part-time guys, but they're certified as career firefighters. And it's all about service delivery, but it's also about the availability of your citizens. Nowadays, and it's an unfortunate thing, I see it in the Lions Club, is younger generations don't want to volunteer the way that they used to. And it has moved, the fire service in Harris County now is moving and evolving more towards a career-based agency, where the Dallas Metroplex and the fire service of Dallas Metroplex did this 25 years ago. Mm-hmm. They went through the same growing pains. Austin went through it another 10 years later, and now it's kind of our turn to go through the share of it. But we have turned into a full career agency. We just put on battalion chiefs this year, much as you know. And then our first career guy was hired in 2008. And that just kind of progressed to where we're at now, having 30 guys spread over 3 shifts at 3 different fire stations.
Absolutely. And so, and I know, Chief, when you kind of came on, you're more, I should say, Chief Cook, Assistant Chief / Fire Marshal, right? So he kind of took your position over a little bit there to kind of head up the Fire Marshal's office. Not that he's out there doing inspections every day or anything, but can y'all talk a little bit about the Fire Marshal's office? And as far as businesses and residences here in town, what does that Fire Marshal's office mean for us, and what does it do for us?
Well, I think one of the big benefits of being a business in Tomball is the fact that they have a robust, or we, I guess I'm now we have a robust fire prevention program where we have inspectors and apparatus that conduct inspections that go out and do all the fire prevention activities to make sure that everybody's within code so that, it can be the safest place that there is. And obviously it shows in the number of fires that we have every year, which is down. Which is a good thing for the citizens. That's and the businesses. So that's, I think that's a good thing for sure.
Yeah. So just kind of walk me through the process. I've had some friends that I've talked to that own businesses in the area before, and they're like, hey, I'm having this problem, whether it be sprinklers or alarms or extinguishers or whatever the case. And then I'm like, well, hey, at the time, Chief Sykora, you were over the fire marshal's office. And I was like, hey, I'll send your info over to our fire marshal, or I'll have him get in contact with you, and he'll help you through this process. And like, whoa, no, I don't want fire marshals sent to my location. I mean, I'm sure we've all heard the nightmare stories where some counties or some jurisdictions within certain counties, the fire marshals aren't nice, or they may not be perceived as nice, where they show up, they're enforcing a law, which is an important law. I mean, just like you said, we have less fires because of these rules, the ordinances and laws that are out. Like, that's what makes us safer. Sure, they're important, but sometimes enforcement can kind of be seen more from that disciplinarian, I'm going to get a ticket or I'm going to get a fine. So walk me through the process of what that difference is with the fire marshal's office here in Tomball, where if I have an issue with something that's going on, I feel like Tomball Fire Department is more of an ally in that than we are a disciplinarian or, a boss.
Well, I think you, excuse me, I was going to say, I think you kind of answered it earlier, more or less. You said the big businesses and the businesses here still have that hometown feel, and that's kind of part of it. The thing about enforcing codes is, first, it's education. You got to explain to them basically, why is this code here? Why are you supposed to have this, alarm, fire extinguisher, exit, whatever it happens to be? Explain it to them, and be a little bit of a, let's work together to get this fixed, right? But most of the time, they don't understand kind of the rules and why they're in place. So explain it a little bit to them. Don't come in there waving a ticket book. That's never going to work. I mean, and that's kind of the small town feel is kind of what I'm saying. I mean, there's, I don't want to say gray area because it's black and white. However, there's a little chance where you can actually sit down, spend a little more time explaining, talking about it, figuring out the best way to go about doing it, and then kind of getting it done.
It's more or less prevention. No, you're good. It's more or less prevention through education. And that's the biggest part of it. You don't want to be that heavy-handed guy walking in there and then everybody fears you walking in.
Right.
You want to be welcomed into people's businesses, not feared when you walk in the door. So we're looking at going in and we're looking at things, say, for instance, fire extinguishers out of date. In general, a fire extinguisher out of date is not that big of a deal unless you're looking at 6, 8, and 10 years down the road. That powder cakes down there at the bottom of the fire extinguisher, and then it's not going to come out. It's just going to be a bunch of air. But one that's a year out of date, they just need to get it inspected. We give them 30 days to be able to do it. We explain why it has to be inspected every year, why every 6 years it's got to be hydrostatically tested, and all these special things that the National Fire Protection Association puts out. But they know walking out the door, I just have to call this company. They'll come back in 30 days, whatever company it may be. We don't care who it is, as long as they're state licensed. Come back in 30 days, take a look at it, or it's as easy as just sending a picture to an email address and saying, hey, I did get this violation fixed, just so you know. And we don't even come back out at that point. We send them back a nice thank you letter that says, thank you, we appreciate it, and we'll get this taken care of and marked off the record. And it's treating people just the same way that we push in the city throughout with our core values: professionalism, integrity, and respect. And being professional with them, having the integrity and the honesty with them, and then the respect enough to understand that they're still an operating business. That's one of the reasons during COVID that we didn't go out and inspect businesses. It wasn't necessarily we wanted to back off on fire safety, but one, we were keeping our inspectors safe. And then two, we're allowing that business to just kind of ride for now. Some of the companies weren't coming out and doing inspections anyway. So it was one of those things, we're going to take that step back this year, and we're just going to hopefully be able to ride this wave out. And unfortunately, it lasted a little longer than we wanted it to. And then, we ended up here today.
Right. I do agree with you a lot on that small hometown feel. It's kind of like, I think, what I spoke about when I said being an employee of this organization versus a larger one. It's kind of the same in a city where it's like, what is your intent? If this company is brand new and coming in and they're not building correctly, or they don't know, because their job is to be studied up on these things, but things get missed, honest mistakes happen. And so I think that it's kind of knowing, like, okay, you're brand new to Tomball. You have no idea as a business what you're supposed to do every single step of the way. So we know your intent was not to be malicious and hurt firemen or your employees or cause a safety issue. But Here, let's educate you, or you have been here forever and you've always been compliant. You've always been a great business owner in town, but you had this mess up for whatever reason. It got busy and you had a bunch of boxes stacked up by your egress, or, a fire extinguisher went out of date, or whatever the case may be. I think it really kind of plays into that, where you have that small town feel. It's pretty nice. So as a resident here, what's the most important thing that I should know about our fire, EMS, police services, whatever, public service it may be that comes out of Tomball? What do you feel like Tomball Fire Department offers the most that you may not necessarily get at every single municipality? Why would I want to live here?
Well,
I mean, honestly, it's some of the similar stuff. I mean, you've got responders that truly kind of take time to explain some things, talk you through whatever it is. I mean, obviously, whenever the emergency's over, right? So, unfortunately, in the fire service, we meet people on arguably their worst day. We don't typically expect a thank you and all that stuff because they got other things to worry about. Mm-hmm. But I believe we have enough people here that kind of buy into that mindset of treating everybody with respect and trying to explain as much as we can that once the incident is over, once the situation's kind of under control, they can take a few extra minutes and kind of help with the next step. Where do you go from here? How do I rebuild, or whatever it happens to be, and kind of what do I do next? Whereas sometimes in larger organizations or busier organizations, I hate to say it like that, but I mean, there are times in the city of Houston where you're gone all day, every day, and they don't always have time to spend a few extra minutes kind of just making them feel a little bit better. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a hard way to kind of, there's not really a good way to put that. Personal touch, I would say, probably.
Yeah. And I mean, it goes back to the old slogan that we have in Tomball, hometown with a heart. Every one of our firefighters has the heart to do the job, but they also have the heart and the compassion to explain things, to be there for the citizen more so than anywhere else I've ever worked.
Yeah, customer service, I think, is probably one of the most important things about what we do, because you're right. Beyond putting out an emergency situation, of course, if someone's life is on the line or there's a fire, yes, that's obviously the most important thing. But that customer service is something that I know every single video you put out, at the very end, you say, be nice. Mm-hmm. And it's for a reason, because to our citizens, be nice. To our coworkers, be nice. To our staff that works for us and above us, be nice. Like, we have to be nice at all times. And I think it's an expectation that goes through the fire department, as well as, like you said, just something that our guys and girls here want to do. I know me personally, I enjoy when I get to sit back after everything is done, and then that customer, that civilian, that citizen is like, man, I'm sorry I had to call y'all for this. Thank y'all for coming out and handling it. And it's like, no, this is what you pay us for. Like, it's not an inconvenience. Yeah, sure, you interrupted my dinner, or sure, you woke me up at 2:00 in the morning. It's not an inconvenience. I'm paid to be here to get interrupted. Like, I'm used to this. It's fine. I always tell them that's what we're here for. That's what we get paid for. And I'm paid by the hour here till 7. So I'll stay here all day. Like, I don't care, So I do enjoy that. I think our citizens too, something that they may not even know about is how much PR we do. Public relations is such a big deal to Tomball. Fire, the city of Tomball Police Department, like all of them. I've seen the events we go to where we spend a lot of time getting ready for these events and getting materials ready to hand out and education ready to give out, and show these kids our trucks and show them what we do and how we get dressed and what we wear and all that stuff. So I definitely enjoy that part about Tomball Fire. Anything else that y'all want to share about just in general the benefit of having the city of Tomball Fire Department within the city?
Well, obviously the benefits are we're going to be there to put out your fire, be there for you no matter what.
Right. So I guess then if we want to kind of transition into something I know that a lot of departments around the area are fighting with right now. And not just departments, but businesses in general. You know, even some of the businesses we've had on here, staffing has been an issue nationwide. I think for a multitude of reasons. You know, first of all, some people are finding out, hey, you know what, maybe I don't have to work every day. And then some are figuring out, I want to work somewhere that's maybe a little better than the place that I'm at, or pays a little more than the place that I'm at, or whatever the case may be. But I know that obviously Tomball Fire Department, we are hiring. We're looking for excellent staff that wants to be part of a growing team. And so I just kind of wanted to give you all the opportunity to talk about the 2 tests that we have upcoming very soon, and some of the benefits that we may have here at the city, and some of the reasons to come join, other than, you know, you may get to drive Lieutenant Kelly if you pass that driver exam.
So we have 2 out right now, the firefighter and the driver. The firefighter, we are allowing folks that are not currently certified, but they're in a certification class, to go ahead and take the exam. The exam's good for a year, or the list is good for a year. The pool is actually what it is, a pool. The pool's good for a total of a year. I can extend it up to 6 months if we still have enough candidates on it. So if we have that guy that is not in EMT school yet and he starts in August, he can at least get into the pool. And once he's certified, he shoots us an email or whatever, gives us a call, says, hey, I finished, I'm done, I'm certified. And now he's able to get picked up if we have a part-time opening, an additional full-time opening, or what have you. And then we also have the driver operators that are going to be going 2 days later. The driver operator is the next rank up, so that's a little more experienced firefighter. It's the guy that's going to be driving the truck, and then eventually at some point cleared to ride up as a lieutenant. But that's where we're at right now. We have that on June the 9th and June the 11th and June the 13th. June the 11th and June the 13th. June the 9th is when the driver operators that's when the list closes, or the eligibility point closes, and then June 8th is when the firefighters closes. So you can go to tomballtx.gov and go to our human resources page, and everything is right there. All of our benefits are there. You know, we have quite a bit. Jeff, you want to hit on some of our benefits?
Well, I mean, we have the benefit of a municipality, so we're in a TMRS retirement system. The city offers a 2-to-1 match, which not everybody gets.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a pretty good deal. I think vesting is 5 years?
Right at 5, yes, sir.
You're able to apply to carry over time from another agency. So if we're hiring somebody from another department, say the Big Giant went down the street, you know, or any others, I mean, you could apply for it. It doesn't always work because it may not match. We have a deferred compensation 457 plan. We have good health insurance, good dental, vision, you know, the whole shebang. You know, it's pretty much a good foundation for just about anybody starting out or wanting to move on. You know, we work a 48-96 shift, which puts you on duty for 48 hours and off duty for 96 hours, which is a little newer in the fire service.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not one that's been around forever, but those that are on it really seem to enjoy it. They seem to like it a lot better. I don't think it would ever fly in a city like Houston.
Oh, no.
But out here, it's works well, and everybody seems to really enjoy it, you know.
It was the best schedule because when I will tell you from experience,
right?
24, 48.
Yep.
Oh, that stunk. You went home after you'd run all night long. You went home. You had your day to relax, and then you were still off one day, and then you're right back at work, and the cycle starts over again. At least with this one, 48 hours on with some of the best people you'd ever meet and work with, and then you have your 4 days off to have a side job, work for Beefy Marketing, what have you. Own your own business.
Right.
We have guys in the department that own their own businesses, and being an entrepreneur outside of the fire service, doing something that doesn't involve the fire service. And then we have our guys that work part-time jobs in the fire service or work on an ambulance.
Yep.
Just pick up some extra cash. Now that's not uncommon. But with the 48-96 schedule, it really allows that 96 hours allows you a day to recharge, a couple of days to work a side job, another day to recharge and come back to work at the best place in the world.
And I'm going to add some to that too, because he kind of made mention of some of the best people and all that stuff, right? And so the fire service is like a family. You know, we're together for 24 to 48 hours all the time. I mean, you've got a lieutenant that's kind of like mom, and a battalion chief or a captain that's kind of like dad, and then all the little siblings running around. And that's really kind of how it is. But here, it's not just in the fire service. I mean, the town and the whole city of Tomball is like one big family.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yesterday, we're together with police department, showing our support. We've got all of our firefighters over there helping them show support to the fallen police officers. They do the same with us. Public Works is the same way. I mean, all the agencies, or all the departments within the city, all truly believe that they're kind of in a family, so to speak, and they all really kind of step up to help each other. And that's another really big benefit at Tomball, because it's like a bigger family than normal. You know, normally it's your crew, your station, your shift. Here it's like you've got aunts and uncles all over the place.
Yep.
I mean, it's really a different
One department, one city, one family.
Plenty of times we've cooked breakfast. I mean, I remember when you were just a logistics guy, you know, chief cook, and you were out at Station 5 where we were, and every single morning it was like, nope, I'm going to have breakfast ready for Chief Cook too, just in case he's going to be here, just in case he wants to eat, we're going to have breakfast ready. And it was like, you know, he was a district chief at a different agency, but it's still, he works with us. He's still our family. We still respect him for that position, and we're still going to have breakfast ready for him. You know, and you're always trying to pay, and I'm like, put your money away. I don't want it. But it was nice to have you sit down and say, all right, cool, I'm going to take a break from everything and eat breakfast with the guys. Because we all know, I mean, we know, I don't know how much our listeners know, but we know some of the best conversations. We solve world problems. We bicker and fight like kindergartners. We rag on each other and probably bully each other harder than anyone. But if somebody else, bullies my brother or sister, then I'll come down on you harder than anyone would ever expect. We have some great times around that dinner table, whether we're having breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And you're right. Like, it was nice at Station 1 the other day. We've got the one of the inspectors, and we've got an assistant chief, and we've got our secretary, and we've got all these different people from around the organization that are like, hey, yeah, we're going to have breakfast with you. Just sit down and eat some breakfast. You know, it really is a family atmosphere.
Yeah.
Public Works just dropped some crawfish off from whatever they had going on.
They had the Public Works Week this week, and they had a big crawfish bowl out at Juergens Park, and they brought all the leftover crawfish, hot dogs, and hamburgers, and all that stuff over to the station. Said, "Hey, feed the guys tonight. Feed the guys dinner."
Right.
Yeah.
I've had city managers stop by.
Right.
I've had council members stop by. I've had the mayor stop by. Like, it really is. It is a good atmosphere. And I'm not saying that because, you know, I teased both of you before you were going to be on the show, and I was like, oh, cool. This is my chance to either grill you and make you look bad, or this is my chance to suck up to you and make me look good. But all sucking up aside, it really is a family atmosphere, and it is such a cool place to work. And we have our growing pains, and we will, from now until Tomball Fire, you know, maybe one day doesn't exist, but we will always have growing pains. Every agency will. But overall, this is such a great agency to work for. And you're right. It is a family. You know, when you've got something going on and you call your brother or sister and say, I need coverage on that truck, it's not just employee 668. I ain't covering for them. I don't even know who they are. Why they even text me? It's, nah, I know that guy or I know that girl, and I know what they're going through. I got to be there for them. And then you drag yourself out of your house and say, well, there goes my 24 hours I was going to have off before overtime. Now it's just 12, you know, and you show up and you work for them. And I don't think you get that everywhere you go. Of course, in the fire service, it's easy. In your firehouse, you do.
Right.
But outside of your firehouse, how often do you really have mayors, council members, city managers, unless it's election time, coming by and saying, hey, let's eat, you know, let's drink, let's have some fun, whatever the case may be. So awesome. Well, how do we support Tomball Fire Department? We asked that question to everybody who's on the show. You know, what helps? I mean, obviously here, paying your taxes helps. We definitely enjoy that. But beyond that kind of stuff, man, tell us about social media. Tell us about websites, all those places we can visit and show support for our firemen and firewomen here.
So one of the ways, you like our Facebook page. We're expanding out into other social media outlets as well, but liking our Facebook page, sharing our deals. Earlier this week, you could have voted for the nicer looking fire truck, but it is what it is. We unfortunately lost to Sykora by like $800
Folks.
people.
Not very close.
800 likes. It wasn't very close at all. Everybody seems to like black wheels. I say they create lazy firemen, but it is what it is. I digress. Another way, and it's something as simple for the guys as moving over to the right whenever they're driving emergency traffic. Keep that in mind. That's the safety of not only yourself, but also our firefighters, so that they're able to have a clear direction going to the fire, going to the medical call, whatever it may be. And then in the inverse of that, if you see, and this is on the police department side, if you see a police officer or one of our trucks on the side of the road with their lights on, do pull over another lane to the left and slow down 10 miles an hour, about 10 miles an hour below where you're at. That way to allow that, again, extra safety for our guys. That's one way to help them out and one way to support. I mean, seeing the guys at the events, go up and take a look at the booth, get to know some of our firemen. Come by the fire station. Anybody's welcome by the fire station at any point in time. And, come see our 1946 Ford Howe that we have sitting. Yeah. It's a second motorized fire apparatus in Tomball Fire Department's history, is actually sitting at Station 1 in the bay and goes out on parades and car shows and all sorts of stuff.
And honestly, I kind of said it earlier with, we see people at their worst day and we don't really expect things.
Mm-hmm.
Working in the southwest part of Houston for the majority of my career, we didn't get a whole lot of things anyway, no matter what.
Yeah.
We understand. We're not whining that we don't get things. We get it.
Yep.
When I moved to the southeast side, we were really entrenched and embedded in that community, and we did get a lot more thank yous and people stopping by and all that. But since I've been here, it's twofold. I mean, just saying hello and thanks and things like that, just showing a little bit of courtesy and support while you run into firefighters at the store or on a scene or anywhere out there, or stop by the fire station. It makes the firefighters feel a little bit better to have somebody say thanks. Not that we need it, because we're just doing our job and what we really want to do anyway, but it does make you feel a little bit better.
Absolutely.
And I'd say the final way that you can support us is Christmas holidays. We have holidays for heroes.
Yep.
If anybody that wants to make a donation is more than welcome to bring it to the station. We put it in our 501c3 account, and then we go out and we provide Christmas for underprivileged children that are within Tomball ISD. But that's not just us. That's the Tomball Police Department as well. And then Public Works. Public Works doesn't have their own 501c3, but they're there helping us. We get people from courts, from city secretary's office, all over the city, out and helping kids out, taking them shopping at Walmart. We basically take over Walmart for a 4-hour period on a Saturday and run 50, 60, 70 kids through and spend $200 or $300 per kid on them. And it's a Christmas that they may not ever have again in their lives, or they may not have until their adulthood.
Yep. That is something I participated in that on the shopping end for my first time ever last holiday season. Like, it almost brings me to tears now to talk about it, because as a fireman, you know how it is. When you're at the station, we pray every single day that we come in, we do our job, we get everything done, and then we go home, and there's not a whole lot in between. The more calls we have, the worse off our citizens are, because they're calling us for a reason. We like what we call, and we never say this on shift, slow and quiet days, because it is what it is. Black wheels, lazy firemen. I want black wheels. Okay. Not that I am lazy, but I sure will take the chance to be if I can. So when you hear about this event and it's like, man, all 3 trucks are going to have to go, and we're going to be at this big event, and there's a parade and all of this stuff, it's going to be a lot of work. There's a lot of moving parts. It's going to be kind of messy, because you can't coordinate something like that and have it be 100% smooth. There are so many moving parts. And so at first you're kind of like, all right, well, I know the reason it's there, so let's go. Let's be happy. We're truly not upset about it. But then when I got there and actually took part, I was like, this is heartbreaking and also so sweet at the same time, because it's like, these kids are so happy to have someone who cares enough just to have a conversation with them, let alone go spend $200-$300 at Walmart on them.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And I was like, dude, this is like the kid that I had, he just wanted to sit outside and eat his Chick-fil-A for breakfast before we all went shopping away from everyone else, and was like, I just kind of want to sit down and talk, And I'm like, I got you, buddy. Let's get out of here. Let's go sit down and talk. And then we talk, and it was like, oh, so you're Camden's dad? And I'm like, yeah, that's my son. He's in 7th grade too. And he's like, oh man, I love Camden. And it turns out this kid's friends with my son. And it was like the personal connection you get and the meaning that we have doing that. I'm so glad y'all brought that up, because I actually forgot to even mention that in this. Like, that is such an important event that we pull off every single year, and we couldn't do it without the rest of the city behind us. So You're right, man. What event did Tomball Fire do prior to that? We had one that we would raise money for.
Prior to that, we would adopt families. We would go out, we would interview them in their homes, that kind of thing. And when you don't have the support of a staff that's able to do that and able to support that, this is truly a partnership with the police department.
Right.
Absolutely.
We kind of took over Shop with a Cop.
That's right.
More or less
We took over, and we didn't rename it. It was a team effort to rename it Holiday Heroes. But it was truly a morph of Shop with a Cop.
Right.
And I think we have a larger effect in doing that, because they were only doing 30 at a time. We said, hey, we can double that number. Well, then, hey, we can triple that number. Well, last year, I think we did 82. I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to go back and look at some emails, but I know that we did over 60 or 70 kids.
That's crazy.
And that's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. And getting the support from the city itself in the same way. And keep in mind, this is all with donated funds. This is not using tax dollars in any means. This is donated funds from citizens, from businesses, and that's what it goes for.
I remember how big it was for us to adopt families when I was just a part-timer here. You know? And I remember going on the street corner, and we would solicit donations from passersby, and so many people were like, oh, no, I donate to this every single year. And they'd be like, here's $100.
Yep.
Not just here's some change out of my, oh no, let me pull hundreds out of here and give you some. So yeah, it was a big deal.
But it also brings a little bit more of a personal, you kind of said something earlier about enforcement, and they're scared to have cops or, fire marshals or whatever it is. And this kind of brings it a little more personal, where, hey, we are real people.
Right.
Behind the badge, so
Absolutely.
to speak. And you're able to touch many more families than adopting one or two or whatever it is.
Oh, yeah.
And so, it's just different for us. We typically take care of a problem and don't get a whole lot of follow-up.
Right.
And this gives us an opportunity to kind of get entrenched in a little bit of a, day-long kind of activity of, I'm going to get some buy-in into this family, and that makes a big difference too, I think, for us. You said yourself.
Oh, it does.
First time you get to do it, you're hooked.
Absolutely. No, it is. And it's the same thing with visiting the station and seeing us while we're there. It's so nice when you get those really good questions of people who are genuinely interested in what we do. And how many people honestly don't understand what a fully staffed fire department does. I got stopped in HEB the other day, and this woman was asking the question in such a manner that I was like, oh man, here we go. I'm going to have to put out a fire, pun intended. I'm going to have to put out a fire of this woman's mad. We're grocery shopping right now, because that's how it seemed the way that she had, asked the question. It seemed that way. And she was like, no. She's like, I'm just genuinely curious. Like, why do I see y'all at the not the fire station, at the grocery store, every single week, multiple times a week? And I'm like, well, because we work 48-hour shifts. And so we've got to go to the grocery store and live like a family in the firehouse for 48 hours. So we get groceries and we cook breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And we have to be able to come to the store to do that, And she's like, oh, I didn't know that. So are y'all staffed all the way? And I'm like, yep. So it's awesome. I definitely love this town. I love this department. And I can't thank y'all enough for being here today and sharing the story for both of y'all and of the city and the fire department, and why we do what we do every single day. Thank y'all so much for coming out here. And listeners, thank y'all for tuning in every single Thursday for another episode of the Beef Podcast. As always, please make sure that you are supporting our pages, listening to the show, leaving reviews, and sharing it with your friends and your family. That's another week, another episode. We're out.
You've been listening to The Beef. Thanks for listening. Make sure to like, rate, and review. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information that you can use. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, follow us on social media. Hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Beefy Marketing. Would you like your business featured on The Beef? Know a business that should be featured? Visit beefymarketing.com/thebeef. Remember, branding is about a connection with you and your people. Till next time, thanks for listening to The Beef.